Special Forces and served with them until going to flight school to become a helicopter pilot in the early 80s. I know what you're thinking when I say this, because I say this every time I look at him. He can't possibly be that old. If you colored your hair, they'd think you were 40, I'm telling you. But he did in the 80s. Upon becoming a helicopter pilot, he went to Korea, Panama, and finally came back to the United States to serve at Fort Lewis and Washington, D.C. as an Army aviation pilot. 25 years later, Calvin returned to Special Forces and military intelligence. Calvin has retired 3 times. In 2003 from active duty, 2006 after being recalled into active duty in Iraq, and in 2012 after coming back from Iraq again. You get the idea why I call him a hero? Quite a bio. After 3 years of waiting, Calvin started teaching junior ROTC at Cape Coral High School, and then came to Hagerty, and that's where I met him, Hagerty, in 2017. He is a U.S. Army Green Beret. He served in the combat roles in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, all of that is awesome. But what I'm fixing to say now is probably more important. He's a dedicated husband and a father. 46 years, as you saw during our handshaking time, married to his wife, Susie. And he says when he married her, his life has never been the same. He is a conservative activist. He is a politician. I will talk about that. Here's the most important thing about Calvin Wimbish, and I want to tell you, he lives it. He is an unapologetic Christian. Amen? He says, I have relied on God's providence at every stage of my life. Whether it was dodging bullets in Afghanistan, raising my children alongside my wife, or even deciding to run for Congress, I couldn't have done it without hope in Christ and a reliance on God. Brother Calvin is running for office, and this is not a political rally, but it is important that you know this. You know we had Dan Webster here last week. Dan Webster is in our district, District 11. District 10, Colonel Wimbish will be running. If you want to see him afterwards, see what you can do to help him or be a part, America would be a better country. Our area would be a better area if it were represented by Calvin Wimbish. Amen? I believe when you have a hero in your presence, you stand and give them honor. Please stand your feet and welcome to our service today, Colonel Calvin Wimbish.
It is on. All right.
Thank you, partner.
First, give an honor to God. I praise him from whom all blessings flow. Without him, there is no me. I don't come with any cards because everything is from my heart. And I believe that he allowed me to be born into my mother and father who are together. And I'll show you a couple of slides up here of how I progressed along my journey with Christ to the point where I'm making this decision to once again step up to the plate and show how God has really embraced me, has loved me, and caused me to trust him and walk by faith and not by sight. Started out as a kid in Baltimore, Maryland. And as a kid, it was tough being raised by a dad who came from Danville, Virginia. He was an old farmer. He and my mom met when they were kids, and he convinced her when she saw him in his Navy uniform during the war in 1945 that she would leave high school, but she didn't finish at the time, and they ran off. Unfortunately, both my grandparents on both sides had passed away, so they didn't have them to kind of hold them down, but their aunts and uncles were looking for them with those double buck shotguns. But Dad took off and went to Baltimore, where he raised my 2 siblings, my 2 brothers and my 2 sisters. But they never gave up. They always had faith that God would see them through, regardless of how they started, which is what I'm hearing so much today. People worry about where you start, how much money you got, where you came from, what's your kinfolk. Let's get over that. First of all, we are created in God's image, not in his color. And I try to let people know that beauty's only skin deep. Your ugliness is to the bone. It's not the color of your skin, it's the content of your character that really will make a difference in how you move through life. I can tell you that, and I'll show you that in some of the slides. In this next slide that's up there, I don't know who that kid is, but I tried my best. I did not have a widow's peak where the hair would come down. They used to call me steeple. So my hair, I used to try to pull it down, but it was kept zinging back. But that was steeple of my hair when I was in high school, determined that some way I was going to get out of the ghetto and not let it hold me down, but let the Spirit of the Lord pick me up. In the next slide, you'll see that's where I became after 33 years as a Green Beret, proud to serve my country because someone did it before me. Just like we all know that Christ laid his life down long before we even knew his name, long before we understood what it was to trust and obey. I often ask people, what does the word B-I-B-L-E say or spell? And they say, well, Bible. What does each letter and what could it mean from cover to cover if you understand what B-I-B-L-E could represent in your life? Because when you say you can't, I say remove that apostrophe and that T and trust in God that you can. What does the B stand for? To me, it's very basic. Basic what? Instructions before leaving earth. If you apply that mindset from Genesis to Revelations, help me understand what part of that you don't understand. Because I think you're blinding yourself or you choose not to see to believe the truth. You know, we all have choices to do nothing and just stand like a tree, hoping that somebody will come along and maybe pick your fruit, or maybe the rain will come so you can grow. Or you can do something that's not so good, wrong. We can do something that's right. But either way, you got to deal with the consequences of your actions. Stop blaming everybody else like my brothers and sisters and I used to do. He did it, or she did it, and Dad did. Assume the position. Now, a lot of people don't do that today, but I know in some parts of Florida, corporal punishment is still good. And it should be not to hurt or harm, but to strike in the mind and the heart. Because you get the heart going right, the mind going right, the body will follow. And none of us would tell on each other, but he did teach us what I learned in Green Beret about being a team player. So we wouldn't snitch on the others. But there's times when you need to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. So at the point where we're not sure, or he wasn't certain we were going to tell on each other, he would point to one of us and says, Calvin, yeah, Pop, go get the belt. I don't want to get it, Dad. Go get it. And I'd be telling the belt, oh, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. So I brought it back. And we couldn't see what Pop was about to do, but he would stand behind us, and he asked us one more time, who broke the dish or who didn't clean the room or whatever. And he would take the belt and fold it on and go, pop, 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 pop. And we all start crying because we weren't sure which one of us got hit. But it set in us a mindset. We lived in the inner city where it was very bad in the 60s. I was 14 and a half years old when Martin Luther King was in Washington, D.C. I remember when John F. Kennedy was killed, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. It was a tough time when I said, why is the world treating me bad? Why did I hold the world accountable for what was happening? People think that slavery was only towards the blacks, and I tell everybody, if you love history, you learn history. And you learn not only the good, but the bad, so you can understand not to repeat the bad. Slavery's been around since Adam and Eve, but we still want to refuse to understand that. We don't apply the lessons learned, the good lessons that came out of the past. And so when you want to keep your shackles and your chains, you're never going to rise up and walk away. But there's a lot of people who were able to break that chain of shackles. America was founded on a lot of people who came here out of despair. We're a Judeo-Christian nation. My parents kept teaching that to me. We started in a African-American Methodist church, went from there to Baptist. Along my journey, I've been in every denomination there is. At the time, I was still unmarried at the time, so I was thinking I could find someone who would take me in to be lawfully married for the rest of my life. So I went from church to Catholic, then Protestant, Presbyterian, and it didn't work until I found this lady, and I'll tell you that story in a minute. And but I realized that I can rise above my circumstances. The cities were burning. You know, even down here in the South, I heard about Miami, and they tell me in Miami when I was living down there, you know, this is not right. This is not right. Well, at that time, I call him my godfather. He was. His name is Joseph Uhlfelder, a Jewish gentleman who survived the Holocaust. And he said, what do you think about this, Calvin? I'm 14 and 15 years old. I'm working in his, he had a television repair service. I actually worked on John Unitas and John Unitas' TV, and the coach of the Miami Dolphins, Don Shula, thank you. Don Shula. And when both his sons were running around the house, I'm back there with the old TV tubes, and He taught me how to use an oscilloscope and how to test all that. He was giving me a vision that just because you live in the hood doesn't mean you have to become a hoodie, because many of my friends did do that, and they're no longer of this earth. They had to pay the price because they did something wrong, the consequences of their actions. I said, well, it's not right. You know, man should not enslave men, and it's wrong what they did to the blacks. He says, well, what about all the other people, like my people? Let me tell you about 5,000 years of enslavement. And he pulls up his sleeve and he shows me his tattoo when he was a kid in the Holocaust. He made me realize that I had nothing to whine about. I just had to do something about me so I can make a way for the future for others. So what I did in doing that, you can go to the next slide, I decided, well, I'm going to rise above my circumstances. I'm going to become the man. I followed a path that basically says this when you look at the screen. That sometimes when you're in a dark tunnel, you sometimes think there's a light and you don't know if there's a freight train coming at you, but you also have to have faith. And faith does move mountains, as we were saying in the song there. But you have to have also knowledge and understanding of that B-I-B-L-E. Because with the Bible, the Word, you can achieve what you believe is impossible. Many of you in this room probably know that better than I do, especially those who have served before me in World War II. My dad was being a World War II veteran. He turns 98 tomorrow. Him and Mom, they're still together at 77 years of marriage, and she's 94 and still kicking his butt. I didn't say that, Lord, but she controls. But through faith and through understanding the Word, nothing's impossible. And it turns out that that light that looks like a freight train or a truck coming at you is really a light opportunity trying to pull you through. And when he said his life story to me and how he made it through the Holocaust, saw uncles and aunts and sisters and brothers murdered during the war, he didn't let it stop him. And he says, I'm whole because I believe to receive the grace of God. I don't believe in this Jesus, but I know some of my Messianic Jews friends have decided it. I said, but wait a minute, Jesus was a Jew just like you. But you don't believe that he was the man that was called to make sure that the rest of us who are not saved could be saved. And he brought us into the fold because the first Christians were Jewish. And then when Jesus rose from the dead, he gave the message to his disciples. He told them, go now and feed the world. And we would like a grapevine. We became an offshoot of that. So we really have roots all the way back. And I took that to heart. And he said, well, what do you want to do after working for me now for the last couple of years? I said, I want to go to college when I finish high school. Well, then set a goal. Set out a 5-year plan and make the plan work. And every year you finish 1 year, add another. So you always stay 5 years out. Some of my friends got locked up for doing things that people are doing again today. It's almost like a dog chasing its tail when you see the crime and the divisiveness and the hatred because of somebody has more than me. Well, what did you do to get what you need? Dad told me, I said, Dad, I want to go to college. He said, okay. You go to the next slide. And I said, well, Dad, mine is a terrible thing to waste. You guys remember Lou Rawls? You know, he used to sing that song. And that's my dad and my little sister. She's passed. And the next slide will show you that that was me in my middle school. Somewhere in the back there, my mom made me dress up. You notice there was only 2 of us with a tie on, 3 of us maybe. I didn't want it. I was uncomfortable back in the 60s dressing up. But Mom said, you know, you need to look right and be right. People will recognize you for stepping up and stepping out. That's Mom and Dad recently, and they're still prayer warriors. And Mom has gone on to do some other things I'll say in a moment. Next slide, you'll see. I come from a pluralistic society of family members. Rainbow Coalition, as I call it. And I can't help what I am. I couldn't control what was that made me Calvin Wimbish. Just happened to have blue tint in my eyes. And when I looked at Ancestry.com and my heritage, I said, oh, you got a little bit of everything. I'm American Indian, I got Scandinavian, I got this, I got that. I don't care. I'm an American first, and I'm God's child first. All right? I'm a Christian. So I need to believe. Sometimes I wish we were blind like Stevie Wonder, who made $1 billion on that song. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? He's never seen his child. My daughter, our daughter, has seen his daughter out in Hollywood. So it's not like we let those things stop us. And what I do when I show this next slide, my 2 brothers and I, the older brother decided he wasn't going to stay in the hood. When he graduated from high school, he was gone, 28 years in the Air Force. Then look back. And that's one of the things that too many people do. Keep looking back. Reparations and all of this. Let's get over this. Look forward. My kid brother, he didn't want to finish high school after my dad said, if you don't want to be behind that mule every summer, he would take us down to Danville, Virginia, get behind the mule and plow fields and pick tobacco and pick corn and all that. And that mule was the stinkingest thing I ever smelled. And my sisters didn't like plucking the chickens and ring it. Well, we don't talk about how they killed them, but you know, chicken was good. And he said, you don't like that? Don't be a fool. Stay in school. Little brother didn't want to stay in school, but I came home one day as a young Green Beret. He said, what are you going to do? I said, you're going to stop making a mess of what Mom and Dad gave us a chance to rise above our circumstances. So I kicked him in the Army. He did 25 years. Now he's retired in the very same town that my dad and Mom grew up, owns 100 acres of land up there, and he rides around his tractor all day. Some of us got to keep working. Next slide. That's again another shot of me. I don't know where my mom found that, but I asked her, do you have any more pictures of me? Because my kid brothers, if you notice, they're all lighter than me. They used to tell me they found me in the street. And I said, I wasn't light like them. I said, that's okay. And you notice in that first picture, I was a dark child, but I didn't let that hold against me. Something just says, fight on, right on. So I did. And what I did, I went to high school. This was a Baltimore City College High School. It's a school that you had to be selected to go to. And you had to have someone of faith, along with your grades, offer the opportunity for you to be selected. And it was an all-male school at that time. There was City College and Eastern. Then you had Polytech and Western, all boys, all girls. And all the students that went to these four schools were destined or were planning to go on to college and to universities after that. Struggled through that school, wasn't big enough to play football, but did graduate on time and worked my way. And when Mr. Yulfeld asked me what I wanted to do, he said, make sure you keep yourself working. By the time I graduated, I had not one, but two part-time jobs, cleaning toilets in a department store at Hutzler's department store in Towson, Maryland, and then going as a stocker in a grocery store. Making a little money, thought I was going to make enough to have a good time on the summer and go to college because Dad said, I said, Dad, I need money. He says, yeah. The college I decided to go to is right down the street, but it still takes more than what I got. He says, sound like a personal problem. I said, well, he said, what was your GPA? I said, Dad, what do you know about a GPA? You only had an 8th grade education. He said, don't go there, boy. But he said, I believe it, I understand. If you had a GPA that was like 3.0, you would have been able to be eligible for a scholarship. You wouldn't be standing here trying to waste my time to change my mind and give you my money. And how much did I charge you for the first 16 and a half years of your life? Oh, man. Okay, Pop, well, keep on working. Got my diploma the very Friday after I graduated. Dad comes home and says, son, I got you a full-time job. I said, Dad, I got 2 part-time jobs. When am I going to have time for the summer? And I'm going to charge you $50 a month in rent now that you are a man. Oh, geez, come on, Pop. Okay, where do you want me to work? And what about my 2 part-time jobs? You'll keep doing that because you're going to start Monday morning at Bethlehem Steel, Sparrows Point, Maryland, as a lubrication mechanics assistant. And you're going to get up near those blast furnaces, and when that oil starts to leak and those copper tubing starts to break, they're going to cool the temperature down to about 150 degrees, no problem. And you get up there and you take those brass fittings and that copper tubing, and you're going to fix it, and you're going to enjoy it all summer long. But when it came time to school that fall, in my first year and second year, I was able to go put the money on the table. And Dad said, now I'll co-sign. I won't charge you $50. I'll co-sign for you to get a car so you can go back to school. Took 18 credit hours every year, earned a scholarship by the second year, got an Army scholarship in ROTC. And the next slide will show, that's Morgan State there. That's me as a young freshman trying to be a cadet, got on the drill team, really liked it. But I liked the honor, respect, integrity that it kept teaching me. There was 7 values that the Army, and all my Army friends know that, in the Air Force and Navy, we all have the same values. And I look at integrity as the umbrella that pulls it all together. When you look at selfless service, you look at respect for others, honor, and being willing to step up to the plate. When you're in trouble, whether it's at home, you need a first responder. If you're at home and your wife or your child or your property is at risk, are you willing to step up and take the hit? If not, who are you going to call, the Ghostbusters? I don't think so. You need men and women who have courage, and that's one of the standards of values that I live by. Courage. Even when it's about me maybe losing my life for someone I don't even know, why not? So what I did, I kept on going, And on the next slide, you'll see that I was able to get my pilot's license while in college. That was an honor. We'd do it through the Army Scholarship Program. I could apply, and I was able to fly that airplane, took my wife and my father-in-law and my 2 kids across country, scared them to death, and that's another story at another time. Especially when we went to a thunderstorm. That was, well, we'll move on. Next slide. Oh, that slide with me in the white, black and white, that was number 1 in my ROTC class out of 5,000 cadets. I didn't have anything special. It was just about, I'll say this phrase, I call it my phrase that pays. It's the altitude of my attitude, an attitude of gratitude. And I use that a lot with my JROTC students when I was telling them. Because if you don't have the right attitude, why are you here? And oh, by the way, let me just dial your parent and tell them why you're not paying attention. You can explain it to the class and then put them on speakerphone, crickets. Have to have the right attitude. Be in it to win it. The next slide, we'll see I graduated, felt good, got my diploma, earned it, turned into the next slide, a second lieutenant, went on with General Chappie James, one of the Tuskegee Airmen, pinned me as a second lieutenant. On the other side of that picture was Benjamin O. Davis Jr., another African American who achieved. They said something profound to me that related to exactly what Mr. Uhlfelder said. It's not where you've been, it's where you're going. Benjamin O. Davis Jr., he was from Pensacola, Florida. We've already paid the price, Lieutenant. And now that you're one of us, put yourself in gear. Step up to the plate. It's not about the past. It's about the next generation and the generation beyond that. Do what you can to make a purposeful mark. And God will be with you. Because he will put a fence around you. He is my strong tower. I use the armor of God every day. I put it on when I was in uniform, and I take it and put it on every day like right now. Ephesians 6 and 10 through 18 doesn't lie. It tells the truth. And the truth may hurt, but it does set you free. The next slide shows that I became an 82nd Airborne guy trying to jump out of perfectly good airplanes. Did that for a while until I realized, I got a pilot's license from college. Why not apply this to the military? But the Army was delayed in making that happen because Vietnam was winding down in 1971 when I got commissioned. But later in life, I went on to Special Forces, went on and did my thing with the 5th Special Forces Group, was on my way to other things, and assignment came up, nope, you're not going to keep fighting in that battle rattle that you see me in a picture there, but you're going to go on and do some other things. So I went on and served across the country from South Korea to the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan. Like he had mentioned in Panama, they were still shooting us back in the 70s and early 72 before Noriega and all of that. Next slide. And then this is me flying in overseas in helicopters, and it was a great experience, but it wasn't enough. Something was missing, and I didn't know what it was. Next slide. You'll see that I wound up going overseas to Egypt and working with the Egyptians there. That was when the Israeli, I call it terrorists, shot and killed the Israeli prime minister that year. And we were over there, and they stopped the war, the training that we were doing, because they were afraid that America would blame the Islamic people for what happened. Turned out it was another Jewish person that wasn't happy with their prime minister. But we got over that. But that general there became my good friend for several years. I lost track with him. Because he says, I believe, I'm a Christian, but don't tell my brother. Because there are many times they're afraid to speak the truth about where their heart was. Next slide, we'll see these are some of the girls who weren't allowed to have high school, let alone get through middle school, let alone mature enough that they can sit like us. And it broke my heart while we were in the green zone in Iraq that we took an old bombed out building. We rode home, all of us guys and gals that were stationed there. We got thousands of everything from backpacks to binders, just like they were giving out to the kids yesterday and today around the state. And these kids were so grateful that they were able to learn. And they wrote back to all the kids in their broken English as best they could how much they thanked them for caring about them. It warmed my heart, said I must be doing the right things right. We could make their life free. They're still working to get free. In the desert, wondering, okay, Lord, what's next for me? I didn't know what to do. So the next slide shows me meeting this young lady here, and something about her sweetness that grabbed me, and I said, I walked up to her one day and I said, hey, young lady. She says, yeah, I'm a young captain, tall and tan and dark and handsome, I figured, I'm going to take this girl dancing. And I said, I'd like to take you out and, go dancing and dinner. She said, I don't date black guys. I said, oh, My best friend at the time was a Jewish captain. I said, Randy, watch this. I don't date black guys either, but I'm going to marry you. Don't mess with this Green Beret. I love challenges. And the challenge was on. And 46 years later, we've gone through trials and tribulations. There's an old phrase we used to say back in my neighborhood. I've been lied on, cheated, talked about, and mistreated. I've been abused and scorned, and sure as you're born. I've been up and been down, been leveled to the ground. But once I marry that girl, I don't need nobody else. I plan to keep her for the next 46 years if she'll have me. And if God willing, maybe I'll have 125 years because the Bible said that might be possible. So I'm going to believe to receive that gift. That was just as an outfit. That's my two kids. They've grown up now, and my next one shows them a little further along in their life. They've been very successful. I'm very proud of them, loving their mom and me, and obedience is important, as I said in the first slide. And I taught them the best I could. What the Lord is asking us to do, apply it to your life, and he'll see you through. In the next slide, you'll see that's mom and dad together. That's at that church that they founded 67 years ago. And they're still there. Mom, by the way, went from not finishing high school, got her high school while she was working at night doing as a seamstress and working and doing hair at a beauty salon, went to school, got her degree, went to teach special needs kids for 20 years in Baltimore, was recognized by the city of Baltimore for her effort. When she's in her 60s, she kicked my dad, says, pass me the Bible, honey. Dad said, woman, go back to sleep. No, I got to read the Lord. The Lord told me I got to stop preaching. Woman, you go back to sleep. Her journey wasn't over. And from 64, she went to seminary, finally got her collar, and they allow her to preach maybe once a month, but during COVID, it was like 2 years stint that she didn't do anything but stay at home. But she still has God as her center, and God is my center. And he's given me the wisdom to step up to the plate and do all I can. In the next slide, that's them right now, like I said, 77 years. They were just past April. They got married on Friday, April the 13th, 1945, go figure. They said it would never work, but God blessed them. They're still holding on to God's unchanging hand. The next slide, I don't know who that guy is, but he still tries. And when I met Pastor, I was at Haggerty trying to teach some sense into the kids. Subsequent to that, I got to, talk at the Memorial Day ceremonies because I always wanted to honor those are real heroes. I'm just a pass-through. Those who didn't come home are the heroes. And even to this day, in my pocket, I carry a coin to remind me of, actually, I got 2 sets of coins. These are the heroes who didn't come home. And some of them I got a coin from in their past sense. Some, like me, did not know how to quit, so they kept signing up again and again, or they got recalled because some of us didn't read that real fine print that says the Army has the right to recall you up to a certain age or status. Green Berets up to age 70. I said, no, it doesn't say that. Oh, it does say that. I said, oh, be careful of what you wish for, what you sign up for. But I did not let this stop me. I became a pilot, Green Beret, got into military intelligence, became an interrogator, worked in human intelligence, and I love body language because it speaks to me as I look at each one of you. It tells me a lot about your spirit, and that is good. And that's why you're here. Every day it should be Sunday in our lives. The next slide, I'm standing here now looking at tomorrow, saying, how can I be of service to my nation? How can I do more? Because when I saw those 13 young kids die last year, and before that I saw the commandos, this other set of coins is a commando coin that came to me from the equivalent of our Green Berets that we were training. And the young man said to me, sir, we thank you for teaching us and training us how to protect our families, our children, to stop this bitterness of hatred of using young women and kids like barter. When you owe a debt, give them your daughter, give them your son. And yet they want to protect them to be more like America. And that was the thing that caused me to say, Lord, what can I do more? And he said, why are you laying there? You need to run on. You need to run and see what the end will be. And I stand before you today hoping that that little story about Christ has been my strong tower. He's been my shield and my comfort. I put on the full body of armor because on the next slide, I think I got something that says, that was me at the memorial ceremony. I use the same dress down with my uniform every time I go to honor those who have been fallen. In the next slide, I think about our nation. And those 2 gentlemen that you see up there, you probably recognize one of the 2. A lot of people don't know I am a Frederick Douglass person, because it was he who was able to walk into Abraham Lincoln's office unaccompanied, unescorted, and sat down with him to get the rightness that needed to come back to America started, and got so many blacks to join the army and fight to break the shackles and break the chains so we wouldn't have an enslavement nation. But as I walk around, I carry in my pocket all the time this Constitution, which is buried in my pocket, but I have it. And it's on this side today, Constitution. A little book. And he was telling, when he was at Haggerty, I would make my students memorize this book. By the time they finished their freshman year in JROTC, they knew it from cover to cover. But they need to understand how to apply it. And if we get more people to do just that, we'll be a better nation, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I say this for those who have served. I want you to know I heard you. The people who can't do for themselves what they expect others to do for them. There are some good people, good men and women, who have done before me and will go after me to step up to the plate. The only difference between a saint and a sinner is when they fall down, be a saint and get up. And then always encourage yourself, your kids, your neighborhood, those who have them say, I don't want you to pray for me. I say, I really am going to pray for you. Because you know that they've been caught up into that ugliness that the devil continues to put in your mindset. Take the blinders off and let them see the truth. I'll stop right there by saying thank you all for allowing me to spend time in your service this morning. I love the Lord. He has brought me through so much. The valley of shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. The 23rd Psalm, Psalm 91, they all resonate with me. And I pray to God that I will do honor to him in his name. And I pledge and I promise that whatever he has before me, if this journey that Jeff just told you about I'm on is to be, I will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. Thank you all. God bless you.
If you'll remain standing as we'll have our hymn of invitation, and at the close I'll say a couple more words about Brother Calvin. Listen, I know Brother Calvin's heart. He believes in everything that he talked about, but he knows what has been his guiding force has been the Lord Jesus Christ. There's someone here today that's never accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior. Tomorrow is not the day. Today is a day. You say, well, this was kind of different than I'm used to in church. Yes, but let me tell you, Jesus does things in different ways. Amen? You come on. There's nothing more important than happening today. If you need Jesus, you come get him today. You may see Brother Calvin today, and you may see all of his accomplishments and everything that the Lord's done in his life, and we honor it and we're grateful for that. But you're sitting there and you say, I want to make a difference. The same God that made Calvin Wimbish made you and can do bigger things in your life than was done in his. You got to make yourself willing, turn yourself over. Maybe there's someone here today, you're listening to the media, you're listening to the internet, and let's be honest, you're not happy with your country right now. Now, is our country perfect? It's not. Our country is made up of people. It's just like the church. The church is not a building, it's people, and people make mistakes. But your country needs you. It needs your prayers. Who's in charge of our country? God is. I say that all the time. People say, I can't believe that happened. God allowed it. And it happens for a reason. Anything that the Lord would have you do today, let the Lord have his sweet way.